Welcome to another edition of the Secure Dynamics TechCast. Today with me, I have a recurring guest. Thanks, Mike, for accepting my monthly invite, and happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, Ashwin. I'm happy to be here. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. So let's start with an article. I'll share the link with the viewers as part of the video as well, to a write-up. But the thing that caught my eye, and I wanted to kind of pivot your attention towards that. I'm just going to read it out for the benefit of the listeners. And this was a quotation from Dave Cole, who is the co-founder and CEO of a company called Open Raven. And the title was eye-catching itself, but then the title was "Empathy Wins Deals." I've never heard this from a sales presentation, right? And I'm going to read it out. The IT security space is notorious for using a challenger sales approach to inform customers of long-term risks. We changed our whole sales playbook because we realized our customers were not just working from home, they were working from crisis centers. And that got my attention. It's like, what is a crisis center? And then he talks about it, often caring for aging parents, homeschooling their children, worrying about their own job security. No one needs to be scared into buying anything right now. So I just had to internalize for a minute, and that's why I said, your perspective, right? Number one, how many vendors have you seen talk about this in such an open fashion, saying, hey, we got it all wrong. This is not how we should do, and we'll be using this opportunity of the pandemic to rewrite how we need to engage with customers. So have you seen instances of that, and how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I've definitely seen both sides of it, and I think that's a very well thought out statement. On one hand, I used to be on the vendor side back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I know we used to talk about making sure we weren't being quote unquote ambulance chasers, right?
Right.
Was the term that one of the wiser sales leaders used to use. And I think it's really important. And I love that leading with empathy and compassion during times like this is so important for a few reasons. One, we're all getting bombarded, and it's a really unique year. And I love the crisis management centers reference. I was in a meeting with a group of IT leaders today, and one of them had to take off and run upstairs because one of the kids started crying in the middle of the day. You know, one of the kids had hurt another kid, and these are the real problems that people are dealing with in their office now as their office evolves into their home for a little while. And I feel like compassion and empathy for the overload of tasks, of meetings, and just the overall situation. If you're talking to an engineer, an architect, a security or technology leader to make a sale, you're talking to somebody who might have been on a call till 2 or 3 a.m. to oversee a firewall deployment or a software upgrade. Then they got a call at 5 a.m. when a system was down because it broke something that wasn't found the night before. So I feel like empathy and compassion are really the foundation to being able to make a connection and thus eventually make a sale in today's marketplace.
Yeah, it's good to hear. I mean, your side of the story as well. So for the listeners and viewers from the vendor side of the house, and this is not just a fleeting moment of, hey, let's do. I mean, I'm using this casually, but I had this thing called empathy as a service. Hey, for the next 2 months, empathy as a service, and you can sign up. But this is, I mean, to be clear, like what you're saying, I think this is something that once people have the third eye or that different frequency that opens up, I'm sure this needs to be more than just a passing glimpse. So shifting gears a little bit again, talking about education and academia. What we're going through right now and how people are evolving to that, there is no playbook, there is no management training, there is no MBA course. So how have you seen students react to this in terms of, number one, obviously, like you're saying, their own question, whether they're graduating students or whether they're sophomores or whatever their own, but also coming out, there is nothing to, I mean, there is no decades of experience worth of emulation because this is all new, right? So where do they get their trade skills, so to speak, and what have you seen in terms of your own university, but also the broader populace?
It's a great question, and I would say the academic landscape and the education landscape for IT in general, and even broader, is shifting. I mean, I remember I've been in and out of higher education for a while. So I remember over a decade ago working within higher ed and hearing people disparage online education and online communication versus face-to-face, and contrast that with now, where those good at it are thriving and those who don't have some sort of advantage with it are struggling. And luckily for all of us across the country and the world, in 2020, many are good at doing things online and digitally, much more so than a decade or two ago. So, you know, thank goodness if there's one saving grace this year, perhaps it's that. In terms of IT education, similarly, I feel like there's two extreme camps and then some balance between them. Obviously, there's the very traditional didactic learning where if you're in an IT degree program and you haven't written X number of pages and there's a typo in your final paper, that's what you should be judged on, right? Or, you know, how many peer-reviewed articles you've read. Then on the flip side, there's an educational model that none of that matters and you should just go pure hands-on. Which for certain jobs, maybe that makes a little bit of sense. I really feel like a balanced approach is the future. When I hire people, and I've been blessed to be able to hire some great people even during this pandemic, it's quite funny because there's team members I've never met yet that work on the team. But as we do this, I really value a balance of skills. If someone cannot send an email in a coherent and articulate manner, or write up a report about a cyber attack and publish an advisory, they're really missing something if they can't communicate in that way. And they don't have the basic business skills to be able to make a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint on the change that they're going to make next week. On the flip side, again, people who are purely didactic and have no technical skills in IT have a more limited set of options and are really missing something in today's market. And all too often, I do get people in interviews who've gone through a didactic academic experience, and they can't answer the questions you'd be able to answer if you had built a server, or if you'd configured a switch once, or if you had set up any sort of security product and used it yourself, or stopped an attack, or actually hacked something, depending on the job. So I feel like it's not a rigid either or. I feel like there's a balance between getting the traditional skills that do still matter, but getting them in a more efficient, more flexible way for IT. And then also finding creative ways using labs. Our Cyber Center of Excellence we have at GCU is obviously something we're really proud of. You know, doing better simulation environments. I feel like these things are really important too.
Great. So going on to the last question, and you mentioned something that even during this conversation about configuring a firewall or looking at logs and trying to figure out what might have changed. This is valuable information. So if I had Mike you as a mentor and I was a graduating student, I know I'm throwing back 20, 25 years, but the point I'm trying to make is how does someone go, where does a mentor-mentee relationship in this virtual environment come about, right? Because you can, like you mentioned, everybody is pummeled with too much information, right? Do I listen to the webcast? Do I listen to this podcast? Do I do this? Do I do that? So where does the enduring mentorship come into play? And is there a way that graduating students can actually find out, okay, is Mike the right guy for me? Is Lester the right guy for me? Or is Helen Patton the right person for me? How do I connect with, and how does that become an enduring connection? Because at least for me, growing up, having the strong mentors really helped me quite a bit.
It really is very important. It's helped me quite a bit as well. And to this day, I benefit from mentors in both technical topics and security leadership topics that I ping all the time. And I missed a call from one just a moment ago.
Sorry about that.
No, it's a great thing, right? So that communication and mentorship is really the rising tide that raises all ships and that brings us all up. So it's important. And it's much more difficult when we're not all walking around an ISSA or ISC squared meeting or a Cactus Con, and hopefully some of these things can happen again one day soon. But it's more difficult when we can't have that face-to-face connection and that happy hour afterwards where you walk up to the person who gave your favorite talk of the day and just start chatting with them. I will say that many organizations have done a tremendous job of extending thought leadership into digital realms and starting virtual conversations, obviously you among them with this forum. And there are mentees that I have that have just reached out over LinkedIn and dropped a phone number in a private chat. Granted, hundreds of those come in, and I'm guilty personally of not always getting behind and not reading them all. But if you do that across 10 people that you're interested in learning from, that's key. The key part is we're all also getting social engineered and attacked constantly. So make it really clear you're not selling something, and make it really clear you're not social engineering. You make your communication personal, and then don't ask for anybody to view a link or anything like that. But if you put a cell number and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more, I'm a student at XYZ, and send me a text with a good time we can chat. I feel like that would be reciprocated, and if you pick 10 leaders and do that, one of them is really likely to reply. If I don't reply, it's just because I didn't see it.
No, great advice, and I couldn't agree more. I think, I can imagine myself just like you, inundated, but then there's obviously going to be somebody with these sinusoidal waves who has that period of time, somebody's life that they can actually impact with their own expertise. It's also, I think, a good ego booster to know that your thoughts are valued. So always great chatting with you, Mike. Stay safe, and hopefully one day we'll meet at IC Square or somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely. Another great conversation. Thank you so much, Ashwin.
Thanks, Mike.